requests for proposals, just making sure in case you don't know what that synonym means, and how to generate leads. So I have to read this bio out. It's really, really incredible. At 24, he started as a business consultant at Company Partners. 25, as a franchisee at Company Partners. 2016, he then started Business Plan Pro. In 2018, he opened up an entrepreneurship school. Ndibala Antonina, very well experienced, and will teach us about the blueprints and strategies. He is affectionately known as, guess what? Monwabisi. He's affectionately known as Monwabisi because he is currently learning the Xhosa language. I call up on stage founder of SMME Small Business Coach, Brent Badenhorst.
Molweni. They asked me to bring a bit of Africanness in to my presentation, so here it goes. Tete isingxhosa kan ndiyafunda. Igama lam iMonwabisi uhlalapi I Cape Town. Excellent. I'm so excited to be here. I think it's a great opportunity. I'm honored to be here, and I can't wait to get stuck into the presentation and giving you guys some practical tips from a small business direction, where you look at how do I build a successful business and a business model, as well as I did some research as I couldn't sleep Friday night and Saturday morning, so I thought, you know what, I'd rather work a bit on the presentation. So I did some research on the tourism space globally, as well as in Africa and South Africa, and I got some very interesting statistics that I would like to share with you, and I'm going to couple a couple of ideas to that. For anybody here who's an aspiring entrepreneur or online who wants to see opportunities and maybe start something new in South Africa that can attract international tourism. Right, so let's get started. Basically, when you look at building a successful business and a business foundation, there's 5 key building blocks that you need to set up in your business. The first thing that's critical for any small business is a strategy. And it sounds simple, but it really is quite complicated to set up a proper business strategy. So I'm going to give you the 3 building blocks that I use for all my clients when we look at a strategy for their business. Then the second building block that you're looking at when you want to set up a proper business foundation is a solid brand. You got to have a brand in place that captures people's attention within the first 5 seconds. Right, that's very, very, very important. The third thing then is to set up your marketing channels for lead generation that is now in line with the branding as well as with your strategy. So you got to speak the same language throughout the strategy, the branding, and then the marketing in order to generate leads. Then we're going to take a look at a couple of sales techniques to convert those generated leads into closed business. And lastly, a quick touch on operations in your business. How do I build a business that's system dependent, not people dependent, a business that will function without the owner operating it 24/7. Are you guys ready? All right, good. So when we look at a business strategy, as I said, there's 3 key areas that you need to consider when you're setting up your business strategy. The first one is your value proposition. The second one is your unique selling proposition. And the third one is your competitive advantage. Now, when we look at specifically the unique selling proposition and the competitive advantage, I see that in the small business space, in the SME space, people normally tend to focus on either being unique or either being competitive. That's the 2 differentiation factors that people focus on the most. And the thing is interesting because when you look at a unique selling proposition, people tend to have a higher price. And when you look to be more competitive, people tend to have a lower price, but a less or how can I say, the quality of the service might be a bit less to justify the lower price. I mean, that makes sense. And also, Steve Jobs said, now I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs. He is probably the best entrepreneur to have ever walked the earth. And I'll stand by that. I've read his autobiography twice, and I've studied the concept of entrepreneurship in depth. And that guy was absolutely brilliant. So if you want a good book to read, go read the book of Steve Jobs written by Walter Isaacson. And Steve Jobs basically said, never try to be better than the competitor, try to be different. Don't just be different, be better as well. And the key here is if you can really find that X factor that makes you unique and you're better than the competitor, you will absolutely revolutionize an industry. Instead of just competing or instead of just being unique. Another thing that's very important when it comes to the business strategy and what I've just mentioned on uniqueness versus competitiveness is if you look at the concept of being unique, then it's really about what makes me different. And normally when you take a group of, let's say we take a group of electricians or plumbers and we set them up and we say, all right, why should I use your service? They always tell you, I've got a better price and I've got a better service, right? That's normally what people tell you. That's why you should use me. So then I'm standing there, I'm thinking, okay, eventually somebody's going to offer this thing for free because everybody's just got a better price, a better price, a better price. Where's that going to stop? So somewhere you need to understand that it's not just about being cheaper and quicker with your service. It's also about bringing in a unique flavor into your business. Are you guys with me? All right, good. So let's take a look. First of all, the value proposition. This is something that I believe is generally misunderstood, especially with the tech industry that's taken over the last couple of years. And I'm going to explain why. So when you look at a value proposition, you've got to ask yourself, why is somebody buying from me? Why are they buying? Why are they willing to put their hand in their pocket and pay me money? And for me, it comes down firstly, when you look at the value proposition, it comes down to the need. Why does somebody need your product or your service offering? That is probably the most important question you can ask in your business. I can't think of anything else that's more important than that question. Why does somebody need my product or my service offering? Very important. Just to give you an idea, there's a couple of industries in the world that will never, ever, ever go bankrupt because they're selling necessities. So essentially the question you're asking yourself here is, am I selling a necessity or am I selling a luxury? That's your question. Am I selling a necessity or am I selling a luxury? Let's take the COVID and the lockdowns as an example, and let's see what happened with a couple of companies. So we all know that tourism took a bit of a knock in the lockdown and the pandemic. Let's look at the other spectrum, and let's say, for instance, one of the big retail chains. They recorded record numbers. And the reason is simple. If you look at the concept of a need, a necessity versus a luxury, basically the consumer, the person that buys, has the following argument. They ask themselves, right, we're sitting in a pandemic, I am very insecure about my future income because I don't know if I will have a job after the lockdown. So basically now I need to make sure I'm setting up my budget correctly, not to waste any money. In other words, can I cut food and groceries out of my budget, yes or no? No, you will die of hunger. I would not recommend you cut groceries out of your budget. Can I cut a movie out of my budget? Yes. So now we have two different industries. Both are quite successful, but because one is selling a need and the other one is selling a luxury, the moment the pawpaw hits the fan and there's a recession, the first thing I will do is I will cut out a luxury out of my budget. Is that correct? So now you've got to think critically about your business and your idea that you're essentially busy with. Am I selling a luxury or am I selling a necessity? And if you're selling a luxury, know that at any point, somebody can cut your service out of their budget because they might be going through a tough time, or the financials might be tight, or whatever the case is. The question now for you as a small business owner is, how do I transform my luxury into a necessity? How do I change it around? How do I make my service a necessity? And then suddenly you're sitting with a value proposition that people are willing to pay for. All right. Does that make sense? Cool. The next one is the urgency. So with the need, you've got to ask yourself, how urgently do people need my product or my service? That's your next question. How urgently do they need it? Let's take another example. Let's say, for instance, I'm traveling, I'm going abroad, and I get to the airport, and suddenly I see that the lift that would have taken me to the hotel doesn't pitch up. Now I'm in trouble. And it would have been cheaper for me to use this lift as, let's say, versus taking a taxi to the hotel. Suddenly, there's a new need that arises in my life, right? I'm traveling, I'm abroad, I don't know the culture, I don't know where I am. I now sit with a very intense need, and I need it quite urgently. Will the price tag have a big influence in my decision to use taxi services or not? Not at all, because I need to get to the hotel, and I need to get there urgently. So as you can see, the idea is to really work with the value proposition and make sure that you make it more urgent and more urgent to make that buying decision easier at the end of the day for your consumer. Right, the last one is the accessibility. How accessible is your product or service to the market? How accessible is it? Can I easily attain it, or is there a lot of red tape that's stopping me from buying your product or your service? Okay, and this is where you as a business owner need to critically ask yourself and be very honest with yourself, what is stopping the sale? What is stopping the sale? And can I do anything to remove the red tape and make sure that it's accessible? People can use my product or my service. Are you guys with me? All right, so that's the first part of your business strategy. The second one is quite difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy to get to these answers, but if you can get to them, you're really going to set up a proper, unique selling proposition that's going to set you apart from anybody else in the industry. And we all know the tourism industry is extremely competitive. Right, so what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what is a successful business? And if you look at a business model, there's 4 key questions that every business must answer in order to build a successful business model. Those 4 questions, firstly, can I generate a lead? Yes or no? Can I convert the lead into a sale? Yes or no? Can I satisfy the lead? Yes or no? And lastly, can I retain the lead? Yes or no? Those 4 questions are critical when looking at a solid business model. If no matter, and normally what I see with small businesses is that people start a business because they're technically good in the area. All right? So that's why people start a business. And it makes sense. You should start a business with an area that you are well familiar with and that you're technically good in. But the problem is, you start the business and you make a fatal assumption. You think to yourself, just because I'm technically good in this area, I'm going to be a good entrepreneur. I'm going to have a good business. The problem is you never considered that there's certain departments in your business that you might not know. Like, how do I generate a lead? How do I get business in? How do I make a sale? How do I do admin? How do I do financials? How do I do invoices, etc., etc.? And this is where the biggest problem for small business owners is. And it's basically lead generation, lead conversion. That's the biggest problem. Can I generate a lead? Can I convert the lead into a sale? So we'll touch on this throughout this presentation. Now, when you look at a unique selling proposition, the 4 questions basically says, can I generate a lead, yes or no? But now because you're looking at a unique selling proposition, it becomes a question of, can I create a unique method of lead generation that nobody else can copy, that's going to give me extra business where the competitor never knew there was business? Can I get that in place? Can I set up a unique process to convert the lead into a sale that my competitor can't do? And that's about being unique. That's about being creative and innovative as an entrepreneur to get to the answers of these questions. The third one, can I really produce a product or a service that's so unique, an experience that's so unique my competitors cannot copy my experience? And then lastly, can I create something that's going to bring the lead back after I'm finished with a service for a second round of services or products? And this is where you really have to tap into your creativeness and innovativeness as an entrepreneur. This is entrepreneurship. And normally what I see is people do what people do. So somebody comes into the industry, he's starting his own business, he sees the competitors are doing business like this, and then they go and they say, cool, I'm going to do business like this. So everybody's doing what everybody else is doing. I'm saying no, rather be you in the business, be different. Because somewhere in you there's something unique, because every person's unique, and if you can capture that uniqueness and bring it into the business model, you're going to have a unique flavor in the business. Am I right? All right. Another way of thinking about the unique selling proposition is really thinking about the experience the client will have from the moment he enters your product or your service or your business up to the moment he leaves it. If I enter the business, I go through the whole experience and I exit the business, what will my feedback be? Will I be happy? Will I be satisfied? Will I say, wow, this was unique? Or was the service bad? I didn't feel safe. It was late. Stuff like that plays a massive role in my experience as a consumer or a customer. Right, and then the last part of your strategy is your competitive advantage. Right, if we look at a competitive advantage, when I offer you a product or a service, there's normally a couple of questions people want to know. First of all, what's in it for me? What's included in the product? What's included in the service? What do I get? I want to know. All right? Secondly, how much does it cost? Everybody wants to know how much does it cost, because money is important. We can't just spend recklessly our budget on things that's not important. Money is always important. The third thing, how long will it take? Those are the 3 vital questions every prospect wants to know before he engages with your business, before he buys a product or a service. All right. And it's important to understand the strategy, because when you look to create a sales cycle, the strategy plays a massive part, because people buy emotionally and they justify logically. So emotionally, do I need your product or service? Yes or no? Emotionally, if I need it, yes, I'm in. Logically, does it make sense? How much does it cost? How long will it take? What's included for me? Now, if I include that package offering into my sales pitch, I'm giving my prospect an opportunity to argue in his mind, does the value equal the amount of money I will spend for this product or this service? All right, you guys with me? So the way you make a sale is through grabbing attention, communicating, getting people to trust you. I'm going to use a very simple analogy. And the ladies, you can correct me if I'm wrong. All right, I've got Tommy there. She's definitely going to say yes or no. I'm way off or I'm in with this one. I'm going to use an analogy of, let's say you want to ask a girl on a date that you don't know. So I enter the restaurant and then I see the girl sitting there. Let's say Tommy is sitting there. Now I can see she's single. I can see she looks good. Now the question is, how do I get a date with Tommy, right? So what I'm going to do as a man is I'm going to make eye contact. because I need to win her attention. I've got two schools of thought here. The first one is I can duck out here, I can go around, and I can jump into her face and say, hey, let's go for a coffee. What's her response going to be? She's going to say, what? Get out of here. I'm going to get a restraining order against you, or phone the cops, or whatever the case is. But if I now change my perspective and say, okay, let's go tactfully about this, and I make eye contact, and then I see she sees me, all right? Now the question is, did I win her attention, yes or no? I'm going to know that if she looks again and again, eventually she smiles. What does a smile mean? Come talk to me. Am I correct or not? So come talk to me. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can now go and talk to Tommy. And the idea of that conversation is now my communication. That's the second part. So I just successfully won the attention. When I win the attention, I've got a brief window of opportunity to now approach and communicate a message. And then the result of that message ultimately is to win her trust, to ask her out for a date. Are you guys with me? Does that make sense? Right, so that's how you make a sale. That's how you should think about sales in your branding, your website, your marketing and advertising, as well as your sales pitch. So let's quickly touch on people buy emotionally, which is grabbing their attention. The question you really want to ask yourself is, when I look at my brand, when I look at my website, my marketing, as well as my sales pitch, can I win the prospect's attention within 5 to 30 seconds, yes or no? If I make a phone call, can I win the prospect's attention within 5 to 30 seconds? If I run an ad on Facebook or Google, can I get them within 5 seconds to click on my ad? That's what you got to ask yourself. All right. Secondly, people justify logically. You have to communicate a message now that logically justifies why they should buy your product or your service. All right. So you got to ask yourself, when I look at my branding, my website, my marketing, my sales, what is the message I'm communicating to win people's trust? That's what you got to ask yourself. And then thirdly, people only buy from you when they trust you. People buy from people. And ultimately, business is people. And this is just a tip on the side. If you can really understand human behavior and understand different cultures, it's going to be easy to communicate a message to people to get them to trust you, if you're coming from an authentic position. So what I did, as I said, I did some stats on Saturday morning when I couldn't sleep. And I'm going to use South African tourism as an example. So let's look at South African tourism as a brand. Let's look at it from the perspective of a business. And we are competing against the big countries out there when it comes to tourism, which is France, it is United States of America, it is China's on the list, you've got Spain, Italy, Switzerland, etc. So now we're going to take a look at South African tourism as a brand competing versus these big countries. And what I did is I then went and I said, what is the number of foreign overnight visitors to South Africa by country of origin? And I've highlighted 6 of these countries. The first one is United Kingdom, the second one United States, the third one Germany, the fourth one is France, and then we've got Netherlands and Australia. Those are the most popular countries that travels to South Africa, according to this study, which is the latest one I found for 2018. That's obviously now pre-COVID. It's going to change afterwards, but I want to show you the technique that I used for my research. And what I did is I took these 6 countries and I went and I put them into the Google keyword search. Now what I want to do here is I want to see what are the trends in these 6 countries when it comes to tourism globally. And I found that there's a couple of keywords that jumps out of me, or jumps out to me, and the first one is a vacation package. And this is very interesting. In those 6 countries, there's 74,000 people. 74,000 people are looking for a vacation package per month. It's incredible stats right there. Incredible. The other one is family travel. 40,000 people per month are looking for family travel options in these 6 nations. And the key about these statistics is that when you have a brand and a website and you understand Google AdWords, you have direct access to this market. You can get them to come to your website and see your package offerings. It's incredible. Okay, the second one, what I did is, so that the previous one is a global perspective. Now what you want to, I'm just going to go back to the previous one. The question you want to ask yourself here is, these 74,000 people are going somewhere, right? And it depends on who won the lead. So if Switzerland has got a proper brand, and they tap into the Google AdWords, I'm going to click on a Switzerland ad, and that means I'm going to Switzerland. I'm going to spend my money in Switzerland. Now we're competing with them. You've got to ask yourself, how do we get that person rather to go to Switzerland and get him in South Africa to spend his money here? Because now we're bringing money from the outside into the economy of South Africa, and that's going to build the economy of South Africa. That's how we can build the GDP in South Africa. Right, the second one is from an African perspective. I took these 6 nations again, and I entered them based on keywords about Africa and traveling in Africa. And let's see what we find. There is 3,600 searches per month with the word travel to Africa. Now it becomes a bit of a competitive edge when it comes to the popular countries in Africa. The second one, 27,000 people. 27,000 people are looking for African safari per month. Do you have a business that can host 27,000 tourists? Because that's the possible opportunity that we're looking at when we look at Google. And then below we see 3,600 searches for Africa holidays. Now again, what makes this incredible is if you have a brand, a website, and you understand Google AdWords, you have direct access to this market. It's massive. It's a massive opportunity. And then I want to also mention that South Africa has the travel brand in Africa, and we see that based on statistics. So 12,100 people are looking for the keyword travel to South Africa per month in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in France, in Germany, Australia, Netherlands. 12,100 people per month is looking for an option to travel to South Africa. The key thing here is to make sure that person comes and doesn't go to Switzerland or Italy or Spain. And that's where you really need to be competitive, and we need to compare ourselves to these countries and ask, why are people going to those countries and not coming to South Africa? Okay, for the word travel to Africa, it's only 3,600 searches per month. And there we see the 2 big names that comes up when you look at traveling to popular countries in Africa is South Africa with 12,100 searches per month, and we've got travel to Kenya with 3,600 searches per month. So just a simple idea. I would literally think, okay, I'm going to create a website, I'm going to bring in a Kenyan partner, and I'm going to create an option for somebody to travel to South Africa and then to Kenya. And then you solve a problem, a need. So here's the idea. Now I'm going to show practically, based on the stats and the market research I did, how I'm going to set up a strategy based on the statistics, which is real life data I see on the platform. So the first thing, the need is travel or safari or holiday in Africa. Obviously we know the urgency is a bit negatively impacted with COVID, as well as the accessibility. But now's a perfect opportunity for you to plan, so that when things go back to a more or less normal that we had before the pandemic, you are ready to hit the ground running. You're not trying then to say, okay, how's the market adjusting? No. Be an entrepreneur and think. Human behavior after the pandemic, what do people want? And then go and create that. Okay, then next, business strategy, unique selling proposition. I would literally go and set up 3 campaigns on Google. The first one, I would see myself, the South African tourism brand, competing with Switzerland, Italy, Spain, China, United States. I would then secondly set up an African campaign where I'm now competing with other African countries, but seeing where I can bring them in as an alliance and a partner to get people to come to Africa, and especially South Africa. And then lastly, a local campaign, just ensuring that the lead that now comes in doesn't go to Italy, Switzerland, or Spain, but rather comes to South Africa. You still got to get the money in the bank, all right? And then secondly, unique selling proposition for lead conversion. I would highly consider setting up packages, making it easy for people and accessible for them to come to South Africa. And it can be quite a schlep. I remember in 2018 I traveled to Spain. I had to set up my own travel arrangements, book my own plane ticket. I had to do my own visum. I had to book my own Airbnbs, book my own trains, and it was an incredible, tedious process. If somebody can do that for me, it's a no-brainer. Happy days, I'm there, I'm coming, I'm going to spend my money in your country. So I would highly consider packages like a safari package, Cape Town packages, coastline, mountain packages, etc. And then if you look at a unique selling proposition, lead satisfaction, you look at safety and luxury. Okay, that's quite obvious. And then we finish off with a unique selling proposition. I would then say, okay, I've got, so let's take an example. The person comes for a safari package. Right, they come for a safari package. I would now, after the safari package, tell them, here's a coupon for you, 20% discount if you take our Cape Town package or if you take our Drakensberg package. Do you think that person's going to come back? Everybody loves to save. Now I've just created lead retention. I just created lead retention because the person's going to come back in 2 years rather than moving on his list, which is then Italy or Spain or wherever. All right. And then competitive advantage. When I speak about packages, I'm saying what you want to include is you want to include air travel, transport, accommodation, meals, the itinerary. It must be an all-inclusive package that makes it easy for me. You remove the red tape. Now I've got an option. I can travel to Spain where I have to do everything myself, or I've got these very accommodating packages in South Africa that just solves all my problems. Maybe I can go to Spain next time. This time I'm going to South Africa. That's how you got to think when you're engaging with your prospects that wants to travel. Right. And then easy 5 steps for the package. I would literally say apply, deposit, get the visas or help them with the visas, plane tickets, full payment. Make it easy. Are you guys with me? Does it make sense? All right. Now the sales cycle becomes a question of, can I win the prospect that searches on Google's attention, yes or no? Can I win his attention, yes or no? When I win his attention, he's on my website now. Can I communicate a message to him to persuade him to come to South Africa rather than to go to Switzerland, Spain, Italy, United States, and so forth? All right. And obviously you want to build trust. Now we know that we are facing a couple of issues in South Africa with crime. We had a pretty severe third wave with the COVID, and the people are now afraid to come to South Africa. So those are red tape areas that you need to address in your package. You can't just ignorantly ignore them. You got to show him, hey, I've got a solution. I know you're afraid of that, but here's my solution. All right. Now we're going to go to the second building block, which is branding. That's the second building block. When you set up your sale or your strategy now, and you understand the sales cycle to how you will go about making sales, you can now literally set up the rest of your business model in line with the strategy, because you understand the value proposition, you understand your uniqueness, and you understand your competitive advantage. All right, so when we look at branding, it's probably one of the most misunderstood things out there, because people try to be so creative with their brand, and then they overcreate. And then nobody has a cooking clue what you do because it's way too complicated. Branding basically is the first introduction a prospect will have with your business. That's branding. It's a perception. All right, branding is about perception. And normally what I see with my clients is when my clients come to me and they've got these difficult brands or these very unique brands, it's something that's very personal for them. So they've thought about this for a very long time, and it's so personal, if you touch on that, they get very offended. But ultimately, you touch on it because you have a certain perception about the brand. But the entrepreneur says, no, it means. But the perception is telling me something different. And marketing and branding is a game of perception. It's about perception. And if your brand doesn't capture the attention of somebody within 5 seconds, your brand needs some work. That's my suggestion. You want to understand within the first 5 seconds what that business does. Does that make sense? It should be simple. And if you look at a brand, don't overcomplicate it. You've got a name, you've got a tagline, if necessary, you've got an image. Normally I say, when you have a unique name that's very catchy and trendy and it's nice, but it doesn't really get the perception across to what you want to communicate to the market, then you need to at least get a tagline that explains to people what you do as if they were 5 years old. Right? Because you know what you do, but the prospect doesn't know what you do. But you're so proud of your brand, you don't get that, they don't get the perception that you want them to get. So a very easy test is go to friends and family and ask them, what does this brand tell you within the first 5 seconds? And see what their answer is. You'll be shocked. The perception that your brand actually shows versus what it really is. Okay, so I'm going to say again, either the name or the tagline of your brand must explain within the first 5 seconds what your business is doing. All right, if the name explains it, then the tagline can be something creative. If the name's creative, the tagline must show exactly what you do. And then, just a tip when it comes to the image, normally the best form of a brand is a circle. Okay, so if you've got a circle in your brand, it's a good thing. I'm not saying if it's not a circle, it's a bad thing. I'm just saying the best way to approach it is to have a circle because the branders will say it's something that's like full and complete. Okay, that's just FYI. Now, the way that you create a brand is you first of all have to understand who the target market is. And that you should have done with your market research before you set up your own strategy. Okay, by now you should know the target market. You should know the culture of the target market. You should know the parameters and the demographics and all these interesting things about the target market. And now what you want to do is you want to align your brand with the target market's need. That's what you want to do. How do I align my brand with the target market's need? Okay, then, secondly, you want to communicate a clear message. You've got a message now that you want to communicate to the target market. Because you understand the target market, you understand the demographics, you understand the culture, it's now easier to communicate the right message to the target market. And then lastly, there's a couple of branding types we're going to take a look at now. So when you look at branding types, there's 3 schools of thought. The first one is a single brand. The second one is a branded house. And the third one is a house of brands. I'm going to quickly explain. The single brand's quite self-explanatory. There's nothing complicated about that. This is now the one division of my business. It's Business Plan Pro. And the name explains within the first 5 seconds what I do. Is there anybody that doesn't understand what I'm doing in this division? Within the first 5 seconds, you know exactly what I do. Because I'm going with a different strategy, I don't need a tagline because I'm just going to complicate my brand. So in order for me to keep the brand simple, I don't have any taglines for my niche brands. And the key thing about my brand is my SME, which is now the Holdings brand, and I'm addressing my target market exactly. I'm saying, if you're an SME, I've got a service for you. All right, so this is quite self-explanatory. It's a single brand. The second one is a branded house. So now you can see the My SME brand at the top, and I've now created a Holdings brand. So I'm speaking to my target market, and I'm now going to offer a couple of services within the target market that's very niche, that I can win your attention when I need you for that specific service. So we've got the first one is Business Plan Pro, the second one is Small Business Coach, the third one is Entrepreneurship School. The nice thing about this strategy is it allows me to compete on Google. And when somebody types in specifically business coaching, I send them to my business coaching brand. So they know within the first 5 seconds exactly what I do. They say, yes, I need an expert. All right. Same with the Business Plan Pro. If they type in they want a business plan, I send them to my business plan brand, Bob's your uncle. They know exactly what I do within the first 5 seconds. They want an expert, so they're happy to continue with my service. All right, and then we get a last one is a house of brands. So you get, let's take, for example, Famous Brands Limited with Steers, Debonair's, Fisherways. The brands has nothing to do with each other. It's just possessed, or there's a Holdings brand that has the majority shares in those brands. So those are your 3 schools of thoughts when it comes to branding. I would recommend either the single brand. That would be the best recommendation, especially if your service isn't complicated. However, if you want to tap into specific strategies, the branded house will work very well. But you just don't set up a brand of house without a strategy. There's got to be a reason why you're doing a branded house or you're doing a house of brands. Right, so that's basically branding in a nutshell. Now we're going over to marketing. So let's just recap a bit. So first of all, we have a strategy in place. You've got your value proposition. You know exactly why people need your product or your service. Secondly, you've got a unique selling proposition. And thirdly, you have a competitive advantage. Now we understand the market that we are targeting. We understand the demographics. We understand the culture. We understand how to communicate our message to them. That's going to help us with the branding, correct? Now that our branding is communicating a message, we're going over to marketing. And this is the area where the first key question of your viable business model comes up. So remember the 4 questions is, can I generate a lead? Can I convert a lead into a sale? Can I satisfy the lead? And can I retain the lead? Those are your 4 key questions. Marketing is the first step, and it's the lead generation answer. So if you want an answer for lead generation, it falls under your marketing category. So we've got 3 methods here of marketing that I'm going to explain now. The first one is marketing. The second one is advertising. And the third one is networking. Those are the 3 main parts of modern marketing that can generate leads for you. The first one is the normal concept of marketing. And what marketing actually is, it's a process of building an audience. That's what you want to do. Okay, I'm going to do a quick pop quiz. If you want to go and buy dishwashing liquid, what brand do you look for first? Sunlight. That's an easy one. So what Sunlight did over many years is they've built an audience, and they've bought the space in our minds that they are number one. By communicating a message constantly over and over and over and over, they build an audience, and the way they built it is they bought the space in your mind that they are number one. And they did this through big PR campaigns. So you look at your billboards, let's say in modern times, let's bring it to modern times, it's Facebook ads, it could be LinkedIn ads, it could be YouTube, you could set up billboards still in the airport and places where there's a lot of people traveling. You could do TV ads, etc. That's how you build an audience over a long period of time. It's a long-term investment, and it's basically the idea is, I'm not going to need your service now. So Sunlight markets to me over a long period of time, but the moment I need it, you're going to be first in my mind because you bought the space that you're number one. So the day that I need your product or service, you're going to be first in my mind. I'm going to go and I will buy your product or service. All right? And there's a couple of channels. So we look first of all at viral marketing, excellent customer service. You look at social media marketing, which is Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. You get the third one, newsletters. So just on newsletters, you got to ask yourself, when I get the lead, the number, the contact details, when they fill an application form on my website, how do I now stay in touch if they don't immediately need my product or my service? Okay, that's when newsletters comes in. And then number 4 is old school, newspapers, magazines, TV ads, flyers, pamphlets, etc. Okay, the second one is quite an interesting concept of lead generation, and it's advertising. And advertising is basically a skill. It's the question of when you need my product or my service, at that exact moment, can I put my brand in front of your eyes, yes or no? All right. So it's the process of placing your brand in front of the target's market's eyes at the very moment they need it. The difference between marketing and advertising is timing. With marketing, I'm going for the long-term game, and I want to buy space in your mind over a long period of time. With advertising, you've got an urgent need that needs addressing now. The key thing for me is, can I get my brand in front of your eyes at the very moment you need it? That is advertising. When the geyser bursts and you don't know a plumber and your family doesn't know a plumber, where do you look for a plumber? Anybody? There's a couple of options. Google. You go to Google. You're like, I need a plumber. Now. I have big trouble. My house is flooding. Google, help me. Then Google says, sure, we've got 5 people that can help you. Go check them out. Make your own decision. That's the biggest source of lead generation that you can establish in your business is Google advertising. There's a massive difference between Google advertising and Facebook advertising. With Google advertising, I'm searching for a solution. I need it now. With Facebook advertising, the only thing I can do is I can pinpoint a demographic group that I think might be interested in my product or my service. But they never said they need it. I'm just going to take a chance and hope that some of them needs it. That's the difference between Google adverts and Facebook adverts. And I'm saying this specifically because a lot of business owners come to me and they say, I ask them what they do for marketing, and they say they've got a Facebook page. And I'm like, okay. And that's it. And that's how they're going to do marketing. But that's not the solution. Because here's the trick about Facebook, another trick. Facebook, if you've got 30,000 followers on Facebook, it doesn't matter. Facebook's not going to show your ads or your posts to the audience because Facebook wants you to pay, that they can make money. So the stat says that Facebook only shows your post to 3 to 5% of your audience. They blind it from the people because they want you to pay. All right. That's just FYI for somebody who needed to hear that. Okay, so again, I'm going to say the big difference is time frame, short-term investment. And a couple of channels here, you still have the top one for me is Google Ads. That for me is the top form of lead generation because it's search-based advertising. I need a solution now. And this ties up with the stats I've showed you earlier, with the people looking for travel options in Africa for tourism. All right. The third one is networking. I'm sure everybody's familiar with networking. It's the concept of reciprocity. Now, the concept of reciprocity is that I need to repay in kind whatever you've done for me. So let's say somebody does me a favor. Immediately, human behavior says, I'm going to feel the need to reciprocate. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm at a networking event, and I speak to this person. Let's say the guy's a plumber, and he says, hey, you know what? I know my brother, he's got a business. He needs a bit of help. Maybe you can coach him. I'm like, sure, I can do that. Now he's so nice to me, he gives me a lead. Immediately, I will feel the need to reciprocate. So I'm going to stand there and think to myself, I wonder if I know somebody that needs plumbing services. Maybe I can hook this guy up with somebody because I want to return the favor. Now the need to reciprocate is within us, even though the original favor was uninvited. It's incredible. And that is the key to networking. If you can really put other people in front of you, if you're really there to serve somebody else, you're going to be an exceptional networker. Don't just walk with a checkbook under the arm and say, you want my time? You're giving me the money, right? You need to serve other people to build relationships when you network that will lead eventually to business opportunities. Right. And there's a couple of ideas when it comes to networking. The first one is having a list of service providers that you can send your client to. So you're doing your client a favor, so he will come back because he likes you now. And also the people that you refer him to will then send leads your way. And then also a professional basis of clients where, let's say, you've got your lawyers, your accountants, etc., that's referring business between each other. Okay, next. We've got the fourth building block, which is sales. Can I see an indication who likes sales? I've got a couple of people. The majority small business owner absolutely hates the process of sales. Am I right? Because they feel, and I'm going to say this, insecure. They are afraid the person is rejecting them. Because when we start a business, it's such a personal thing. I'm bringing such a personal thing to you. If you reject my service, I feel very offended. If you don't come back to me immediately, I feel very offended. Correct? So now I'm going to say, you know what, I will reject you before you reject me. So I sent you one email, and I'll never follow up ever again. Because now I'm rejecting you before you reject me. How busy is our lives nowadays? Do you read every single email that comes into your inbox? Your client might just have had a very rough day, and he forgot, and now you're feeling rejected, and you lost a sale. Okay, I'm going to touch on this. Sales is nothing other than a good product or service that people need, value proposition, at an affordable price. People justify logically, communicate it clearly. Clear message. That's sales. Ultimately, business should be so easy. You have it. They need it so badly, they're willing to pay you for it. That's how simple business should be. If you've got the right value proposition, if you're selling the right need, then you're not going to have a problem getting payments in if you're well priced. Okay. So again, the sequence of sales is, can I win the attention? When I win your attention, I have a brief window of opportunity to communicate a clear message to you. That message ultimately needs to win your trust. Then I get the sale. Are you with me? People buy emotionally. Do I need your value proposition? They justify logically. Does your package offering make sense? And then people buy from people. People want to trust before they buy. There's 3 phases to make a sale. So now you've got to remember, you've got attention, communication, trust. You've got your sequence. But there's also a phase. And this is where the majority small business owners miss it because of the fear of rejection. So you've got an introduction phase where you introduce yourself to the prospect. Now he sees who you are, he hears what you are doing, he understands your business, he can now argue out, do I need this, yes or no? There's an introduction phase. That can be bumping into somebody that needs your product or your service. It can be somebody coming onto your website, filling in an application form. Now, that's the intro phase. That's the first idea they get of your business, perception. After the intro phase, there's a negotiation phase. Whoops, let me go back. There's a negotiation phase. Now you need to negotiate. The negotiation is all about logical sense. does this package I want to buy make logical sense? What's the 3 things people normally ask for it to make sense? Who listened a couple of minutes ago? What's included? What's in it for me? How much does it cost? How long will it take? If there are 3 green lights, you've just made a sale. Are you with me? And then obviously you want to close the deal. Cash is king. Never walk in the office and say, I've just made 100,000 rand sale if the money isn't in the bank. I've taught my salesman that, and I know they just look at you and like, whatever, this guy's going to pay. And then 3 days later I say, Niku, where's that payment that you bragged about? No, the guy's still going to make a payment, and then eventually he gets it. So anyways, okay. How do you structure a sales pitch? First of all, connect with the client. Now this is generally, so whether I'm here at the convention looking to make connections, whether I phone somebody that filled in a lead on my website, whether I bump into somebody, whether I'm at a networking event, it's the same idea. You want to have these things in your mind that when that moment arises, you're ready as the salesman of your business. Okay, first of all, connect with the client. Ask questions. Get to understand from his perspective where and what his business is about or what his need is. Then secondly, understand. Empathy. Put yourself in that person's shoes. Can you understand from their perspective what the problem is? Can you identify the red tape that is going to stop them to make a payment? The next one is value proposition. What's the real need for this specific client? What's the real need? Pinpoint that, and you only get there by asking the right questions. I always say if you ask the right questions, you're going to get the right answers. Then a creative solution for the client. Now that you understand the value proposition, you can create a solution, correct? Simple. And then it's about creating a bit of urgency. When do you need the service by? And then you keep the client on that time frame and get him to commit to continue with the service on that time frame. Very important. When you set up these packages and these strategies for your small business, you have to remove the red tape. Sometimes there's tedious things in our approach to business that's really putting the client off and stopping the sale that needs addressing. All right, and you've got to ask yourself, what is stopping my client from making a payment? Key question. What is stopping my client from making a payment? And normally, it's 1 or 2 things. Okay, so this is the FOC behavior model. And it basically addresses the concept of removing the red tape. So the FOC behavior model is simply behavior equals motivation, ability, trigger. Let's say you all are sitting here today, that's your behavior. Now we've got to ask ourselves, why are you here? What motivated you to come here? It's an opportunity to increase your network. It's an opportunity to boost the South African tourism, etc. And then the ability, everybody had transport to come here, and I think the event's free, so there's nothing really that's stopping you from the able process. And the trigger was possibly a post that you saw, or an ad, or a flyer that got your attention, communicated a message, and now you're sitting here, correct? Now you got to put your client or your prospect in this model, and you got to ask yourself, what is stopping the sales? In other words, if you look at the top red dot just under behavior there, this client obviously is highly motivated. He wants the service, but he doesn't feel like he has the ability to continue with the product or the service. Now that ability is either going to be cost or requirements. For the majority times, it's cost or requirements. He can't really afford it, or he doesn't think it's possible for him to get what you need in order to continue. If you solve that problem, if you negotiate with a client, you find out what the issue is, you solve the problem, you move him to the other side of the behavior line there in the middle, and you make a sale. Vice versa with this red dot here at the bottom, he's not really motivated, and he's not really able. So your question is, how do you get him to be a bit more motivated and a bit more able to do your product or your service. That's what's happening in the negotiation phase of your sales cycle. Okay, and then the last block is your operations. How do I build a system-dependent business, not a people-dependent business? And Steve Jobs said it best when he said, customers don't measure you on how hard you tried, they measure you on what you deliver. That's what customers measure you on. And there's 4 key steps to build a system-dependent business that every small business owner needs to implement. And the first one is to produce a product or a service of value proposition. Then the key to build a system-dependent business is, can I reproduce, can I duplicate the product or service I created more than once at the exact same level of quality? That's the question when it comes to operations. And McDonald's did it best. McDonald's produced one good product or service of value. They produced a Big Mac. Then they reproduced, or they created a system that reproduces the same Big Mac more than 69 million times per month. It is incredible what they have done. You've got to ask yourself, as a business owner, what's the product or service of value that I'm creating? And how can I set up a system, a pattern, that's going to reproduce or recreate this product or service more than once at the exact same level of quality? Okay, and the way you do that is basically looking at your business from an entrepreneurial perspective and not a technical perspective. From an entrepreneurial perspective, there's 5 key boxes that every entrepreneur must enter every day of his professional life. The first one is marketing, the second one is sales, the third one is operations or service delivery or technicals. The fourth one is legal, and the fifth one is management. Okay, so those are the 5 key boxes every entrepreneur must enter every single day of his life. The problem we find here is that the majority small business owner is the business. So what happens is they get up in the morning. What's the first thing they do? They open the laptop, they start answering emails. Am I right? Is anybody else doing this? Because you are the business, and then you find yourself at 2 o'clock and you're like, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this, I never got to it. Because you got stuck in email queries. Rather, what you should do is say, I'm going to structure my day based on 5 key entrepreneurial boxes. There's going to be a time in the day that I'm going to jump into my marketing box. Then there's going to be a time in my day that I'm going to jump into my sales box. And then my operations box. And then make sure my legalities, my compliance is in place. And lastly, I'm a manager of my business as well. The management box manages the marketing, the sales operations, and the legalities. Right, so that's how you should start to view your business. For every box, you need to set up 4 types of systems. You get a planning system. Make sure that every box is properly planned. Marketing needs a plan. Sales needs a plan. Operations needs a plan. Your legal aspects needs a plan. Your management needs a plan. Secondly, information. Where are you storing the information, the data, the client's details for your marketing, for your sales, for your operations, for your legal aspects, and for your management? The third system is your communication system. How will I communicate within each of these areas of my business? And lastly, execution. What systems do I need in place to execute my product or my service delivery? Right, then how to build a department. What you simply do is you take each box, marketing, sales, operations, service delivery, legalities, and management. You take each box and you create a planning system, an information system, a communication system, and an action system for each box. Now you have a department. You have successfully replaced yourself with a system. Now the system is keeping you accountable. When that happens, the business grows, there's more cash available, you can appoint somebody to take over the department, and that part of your day just opened up because you're not doing the marketing anymore. Are you guys with me? And then you get these 5 departments, and that basically in a nutshell 40 minutes. I've just taken 6 weeks of business coaching and I've crashed them into 40 minutes. That's how you build a business that's system dependent, not people dependent, with a solid foundation that can generate leads, convert leads into a sale, satisfy the leads, retain the leads, with a strategy where you understand the value proposition, you understand the unique selling proposition, and you have packages that you sell to make it easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monwabisi, for giving us that crash course. I had teased the team actually at the back. That's why I'm cracking out laughing. I said, if you put on a really good jam, I might just dance to it on stage. And then I chickened out. So sorry. Maybe next event we can try again. I just want to say, incredible, incredible.